They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I've always preferred mine at cruising altitude with a side of public humiliation. My name is Ryan Torres, and until 6 months ago, I thought I was living the American dream. Married to a stunning marketing director, decent job flying commercial routes, Air Force veteran with a clean record, and a reputation for bringing passengers home safe. The kind of life that looks perfect on social media. I should have known something was wrong when Nicole started calling my flying a cute little job. When your wife of 8 years refers to your profession as a hobby, while you're responsible for 150 lives at 35,000 feet, you're either married to someone who doesn't understand aviation or a woman who's already mentally divorced you. Ryan, you're embarrassing yourself again, Nicole said that Tuesday morning, watching me read my promotion letter from United Airlines. She stood in our Denver apartment kitchen, perfectly dressed in a charcoal business suit, sipping coffee like it owed her money. The morning light caught her auburn hair, and for a moment I remembered why I'd fallen for her during my transition out of the Air Force 12 years ago. "It's a major airline offer," I replied, not looking up from the letterhead. The United logo gleamed like a badge of honor. "They want me for their international routes, captain position." My voice carried the pride I'd been holding back for weeks since the interview process began. "That's nice, honey." Her tone suggested it was anything but nice. "But maybe focus on a real career today. Some of us have actual professional responsibilities." She emphasized actual, like she was explaining basic arithmetic to a child. Real career. I flew 737s through Colorado mountain weather that would ground lesser pilots, navigating wind shears that could snap a wing, and ice conditions that turned aircraft into frozen tombstones. But apparently that wasn't real enough for Nicole. Neither were the military commendations from my Air Force days, the ones that hung framed in our hallway that she'd stopped looking at years ago. Neither were the safety awards from the airline, the letters from passengers thanking me for getting them home to their families. "Speaking of careers," I said, folding the letter carefully and slipping it back into the envelope, "how's that new client working out? The real estate guy?" I watched her face in my peripheral vision, the way a pilot watches instruments during approach. Something flickered across her expression, quick as lightning, but I caught it. The same micro-expression I'd learned to read in aircraft systems. The subtle signs that meant trouble ahead. "Jason Palmer, he's demanding lots of evening meetings." Jason Palmer, even his name sounded like it belonged on a country club membership roster somewhere in Cherry Hills Village. I'd heard Nicole mention him increasingly often over the past 2 months, always in the context of work, always with that slight flush in her cheeks that I used to think was professional excitement. Now I wasn't so sure. "Maybe I should meet him sometime," I suggested, keeping my voice level. "You know, husband-wife networking thing." It was a reasonable request. We'd done it before with her clients, back when she seemed proud to introduce me as her pilot husband. "Oh, you wouldn't like him?" she said quickly, too quickly. "Very corporate personality, not really your type of person." She turned away, busying herself with rinsing her coffee mug, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. Not my type. Translation: successful, ambitious, everything I apparently wasn't. I watched my wife of 8 years dismiss me with the casual cruelty of someone swatting a fly. The woman who used to brag about dating a fighter pilot now acted like aviation was beneath her notice. "I mean," she continued, her back still to me, "he's very alpha, you know, high-powered. Business deals, corporate mergers. He speaks a different language than—" She trailed off, but the implication hung in the air like exhaust fumes. "Then what? Then a guy who only keeps people from dying for a living?" I kept my voice conversational, but something cold was settling in my chest. The same feeling I got when weather radar started painting red and yellow across my flight path. She turned around then, her expression softening into what I'd come to recognize as her handling Ryan face. "I didn't mean it like that. I just meant you're more thoughtful, analytical. He's all flash and swagger. Thoughtful, analytical, corporate speak for boring and weak." I nodded like I understood, like I believed her backtracking, but 20 years of flying had taught me to trust my instruments over everything else, and right now, every gauge in my head was screaming warning. "Right," I said. "Well, I better get going. Pre-flight checks don't do themselves." I grabbed my flight, bag, and headed for the door, catching Nicole's reflection in the hallway mirror as I left. She was already reaching for her phone before I'd even closed the door behind me. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before in 8 years of marriage. I followed her. The decision came sudden and stark, like the moment you realize you're committed to a landing regardless of conditions. No turning back once you're on final approach. Amanda Foster from the Flight Training Academy had been telling me for weeks that I looked miserable. Amanda was sharp, funny, and had the kind of aviation knowledge that made her invaluable as a flight instructor. She was also the only person left who understood why flying mattered, why it wasn't just a job, but a calling that demanded everything you had. "You're tracking your wife?" Amanda asked when I called her from my truck outside Nicole's office building. I'd positioned myself across the street with a clear view of the exit, the same way I'd conducted surveillance flights over hostile territory back in my Air Force days. "I'm conducting reconnaissance," I corrected, watching the stream of business-dressed people flowing in and out of the glass-fronted building. "Pilots do reconnaissance. Pilots also get divorced when they catch their spouses cheating." The word hung in the air like turbulence you can't avoid. Cheating. I hadn't said it out loud, hadn't even fully formed the thought, but Amanda had cut straight through my denial like a knife through clouds. "She's coming out," I whispered into the phone, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. Nicole emerged from the glass-fronted building, but she wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the kind of expensive suit that screamed corner office and expense accounts. He placed his hand on the small of her back as they walked toward a silver BMW, the gesture casual and possessive in a way that made my stomach drop like hitting an air pocket at 20,000 feet. Jason Palmer, I presumed. He was even more imposing in person than I'd imagined from Nicole's descriptions. 6'3", gym-sculpted physique, the kind of artificially white smile that screamed expensive dental work and unlimited confidence. Everything about him radiated the alpha energy Nicole had mentioned, the corporate swagger that apparently made my quiet competence look pathetic by comparison. I watched them drive away, feeling something cold and methodical settle in my chest. It wasn't just the casual intimacy of his touch, or the way she leaned into him as they talked through the BMW's open window before he drove off. It was the expression on her face, animated, laughing, alive in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. The ride home gave me 30 minutes to think, 30 minutes to process what I'd seen and decide what to do about it. In the Air Force, we'd called it situational awareness, the ability to see the bigger picture, understand the threats, and formulate a response before the enemy knew you were coming. Nicole and Jason had just revealed their position. Now it was time for reconnaissance in depth. That evening, Nicole came home 3 hours late with a story about client presentations running long and traffic delays on I-25. She smelled like expensive cologne that wasn't mine, something woody and masculine that clung to her business jacket like evidence. But she moved through our apartment with practiced casualness, the same way she'd always done, hanging her coat in the closet, kicking off her heels, asking about my day. "How was your day?" she asked, not really listening as she checked her phone. Her thumbs moved across the screen with the urgency of someone conducting important business, or someone whose heart was racing with the thrill of deception. "Productive," I said, watching her reflection in the kitchen window as she typed. "Got some interesting news about the United position." Her typing slowed but didn't stop. Really had time to think about career trajectories, professional respect, what really matters in life. She was still focused on the phone, probably texting Jason about how the boring husband was rambling about his little flying job again. "That's nice, honey." "I thought so. Very realistic perspective on relationships, actually. About how some people might underestimate what their partners are capable of." I opened a beer and leaned against the counter, watching her carefully. About how calling someone's career a hobby might be more revealing than intended. Nicole looked up from her phone then, something guarded creeping into her expression. "What are you getting at, Ryan?" "Just thinking about perception versus reality. How someone might see a pilot as just a glorified bus driver, not realizing we're trained to notice details. Weather patterns, mechanical problems, behavioral changes." I took a slow sip of beer. We're taught that small anomalies usually indicate bigger problems. "You're being weird tonight." She slipped the phone into her purse and moved to the refrigerator, creating distance between us. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect. For instance, did you know that pilots have some of the highest security clearances in the aviation industry? We go through extensive background checks, financial audits, psychological evaluations. I kept my voice conversational, like I was discussing the weather. They teach us to document everything, maintain detailed logs, follow protocols. Nicole's hand paused on the refrigerator handle. Why are you telling me this? No reason, just appreciating the training, the attention to detail, the way we're taught to gather information before making any major decisions. I finished my beer and set the bottle down with deliberate precision, like the decision to trust someone completely or start asking questions. The silence. It stretched between us like the moment before touchdown, when you're committed to the approach but haven't yet felt the wheels kiss the runway. Nicole's face cycled through several expressions: confusion, irritation, something that might have been fear, before settling on forced casualness. You're being paranoid, Ryan. Work stress getting to you? She opened the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of wine, something expensive I didn't remember buying. Maybe you should talk to someone about managing pressure better. Maybe I should. I picked up my flight bag and headed toward the hallway. Actually, I think I'll start documenting things more carefully. Flight logs, daily observations, relationship patterns. You know, professional development. Over the next 3 weeks, I became a student of my own marriage. I approached it like a complex navigation problem, gathering data points and plotting coordinates until the true course became clear. Nicole's work schedule, previously irregular but explainable, developed a pattern that coincided perfectly with Jason Palmer's social media posts about business dinners and client meetings. The hotel receipts I found in her car matched locations where Jason's real estate company held events. The credit card charges for lingerie and expensive perfume aligned with dates when she claimed to be working late. Most damning of all, the apartment lease application I discovered in her laptop bag, signed by both Nicole Torres and Jason Palmer for a luxury unit in Lodo, Denver's upscale downtown district. But documentation wasn't enough. I needed audio evidence, the kind of ironclad proof that would stand up in divorce court and, more importantly, in the court of public opinion. So I did what any good pilot would do when facing hostile territory. I prepared my aircraft and planned my mission down to the last detail. The recording equipment was surprisingly easy to acquire. A few clicks on Amazon, a trip to an electronics store in Colorado Springs where nobody knew me, and I had everything needed for professional quality surveillance. Voice-activated recorders small enough to hide in picture frames, phone apps that could capture conversations through walls, even a GPS tracker barely larger than a quarter. I felt like I was back in military intelligence, gathering actionable data on enemy positions. Except this time, the enemy was sleeping in my bed and planning to steal everything I'd worked for. The first recording I captured changed everything. Nicole and Jason, thinking they were alone in our living room while I was supposedly at a late training session, spoke with the casual cruelty of people who believed they held all the cards. I listened from my truck in the driveway, headphones connected to the app on my phone, as my wife of 8 years dissected our marriage like a business transaction gone wrong. "Ryan's so pathetic," Nicole's voice came through crystal clear. "He actually thinks I respect his little flying hobby. The man has no ambition, no drive. Thank God I found you, Jason. At least you know how to take what you want." Jason's response made my blood freeze. "Once we get his money moved offshore, we can disappear. Guy's too weak to fight back anyway. Probably won't even file for divorce. These pilot types are all the same. Follow orders, don't make waves." They had it all planned out. The shell company Jason had helped her establish in the Cayman Islands. The gradual transfer of our joint assets, disguised as investment opportunities and business expenses. Even the apartment lease was part of a larger strategy to establish residency in Colorado, while planning their escape to somewhere without extradition treaties. But what cut deepest wasn't the financial planning or the logistical details. It was the casual contempt in Nicole's voice as she described our life together, reducing 8 years of marriage to an inconvenient obstacle between her and the life she actually wanted. "The best part," she continued, "is that he's so focused on being the perfect responsible pilot that he'll never see it coming. He trusts me completely. It's almost sad how naive he is." Almost sad. My wife found my trust in her almost sad. I sat in my truck until they left for their dinner reservation, then went inside and retrieved the recorder. 23 minutes of conversation, all of it admissible in Colorado divorce court, most of it potentially criminal under federal fraud statutes. I uploaded the file to 3 different cloud storage services and emailed copies to myself at 2 separate accounts. Then I called Amanda. "You sound different," she said when she picked up. "Calmer." "I am calmer. I know exactly where I stand now." I told her about the recording, the financial evidence, the apartment lease. Amanda listened without interruption, her breathing the only sound on the line. "Jesus, Ryan, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to plan my approach carefully, chart a course that gets me exactly where I need to be." I looked around our apartment, seeing it differently now, not as the home I'd shared with Nicole, but as a crime scene where I'd been systematically betrayed. You know what the difference is between a good pilot and a dead pilot? What? A good pilot never lets emotion override judgment. He gathers all available information, considers every option, and executes his plan with precision. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Denver Aviation Excellence Awards website. And sometimes, a good pilot has to make an emergency landing in hostile territory. The invitation had been sitting in my email for 2 weeks. Charles Brenner, former airline CEO and current president of the Colorado Aviation Association, had personally requested my attendance at their annual awards ceremony. It was the kind of industry recognition I'd dreamed about for years. Acknowledgement from the aviation community that my service mattered. Nicole had dismissed it immediately when I'd mentioned it. "A bunch of old pilots sitting around talking about the good old days," she'd said. "Hardly the kind of networking event that matters for serious careers." But now I saw it differently. Charles Brenner commanded respect from every major airline executive in the Rocky Mountain region. The guest list included pilots, air traffic controllers, aviation journalists, and industry executives. Exactly the kind of professional network that could make or break careers in Colorado aviation. More importantly, it was exactly the kind of high-profile, well-documented event where public revelations would have maximum impact. I spent the next week researching every attendee I could identify, cross-referencing their social media profiles and professional backgrounds. Lisa Grant, the aviation journalist from Channel 9, would be covering the event for the evening news. Margaret Foster, senior vice president at United Airlines, would be presenting the Safety Excellence Awards. Even Governor Peterson's transportation advisor was scheduled to attend. Perfect. If you're going to make an emergency landing, you want as many witnesses as possible. The hardest part was maintaining normal behavior around Nicole. She'd become hypervigilant since our strange conversation in the kitchen, watching me for signs that I suspected anything. So, I played the part of the oblivious husband, the weak pilot who followed orders and didn't make waves. I complimented her new clothes, the expensive dresses and jewelry she was buying with money gradually disappearing from our accounts. I asked casual questions about her evening meetings with Jason, nodding sympathetically when she complained about his demanding schedule. I even helped her practice presentations for fake client meetings that I knew were actually romantic dinners. All the while, I continued gathering evidence, phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts between Nicole and Jason, financial documents proving the systematic theft of our joint assets, hotel security footage I'd obtained through a contact in airport security who owed me a favor, even photographs of them together at restaurants and events, acting like a couple while she told me she was working late. The night before the awards ceremony, Nicole made one final mistake. She thought I was asleep when Jason called, so she took the conversation into the bathroom, closing the door and running water to mask their voices. But I'd planted a recorder in the medicine cabinet 3 days earlier. "Tomorrow night changes everything," she whispered into the phone. "After Ryan goes to his little pilot party, we finalize the Cayman transfer. By Monday, the money's gone, and we're on a plane to somewhere with better weather and fewer questions." "What if he figures it out?" Jason's voice was tinny through the phone speaker, but clear enough for the recorder. "He won't. Ryan's too busy playing dress-up pilot to notice anything real. Besides, by the time he realizes what happened, we'll be untouchable." Untouchable. They thought they were untouchable. I lay in bed listening to my wife plan my destruction, feeling something cold and methodical crystallize in my chest. Tomorrow night, Nicole and Jason would discover what every enemy pilot who'd underestimated American aviation learned too late. We don't just fly planes, we fight wars. The night of the awards ceremony, I wore my dress uniform, navy blue with ribbons and wings that told the story of 8 years in the Air Force and 12 years of commercial flying. Each medal had a story. The Air Medal for combat missions over Afghanistan, the Commendation Medal for exceptional service, the Safety Excellence Award from my airline. Together, they painted a picture of competence and dedication that Nicole had spent years dismissing as meaningless decoration. Nicole wore a stunning black dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, something she'd purchased during one of her recent shopping sprees with our disappearing money. She looked beautiful, elegant, every inch the successful corporate wife attending an industry function. If you didn't know better, you'd think we were the perfect couple. "Try not to embarrass me," she said in the elevator up to the hotel ballroom. "These people are important to my career." The irony wasn't lost on me. She was worried about being embarrassed at an aviation event where I was the honored guest. "I'll do my best to contain my natural pilot charm," I replied, adjusting my tie in the polished elevator doors. In the reflection, I could see Nicole checking her phone one last time, probably texting Jason about timeline and logistics for their great escape. The ballroom was everything you'd expect from Denver's aviation elite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Rocky Mountains, walls lined with historical aircraft photos, tables decorated with model airplanes and aviation memorabilia. Waiters circulated with drinks while a jazz quartet played standards from the golden age of flight. Nicole immediately began working the room, introducing herself to anyone who looked influential. I grabbed a beer and tried to blend into the background, which had always been my specialty. But tonight felt different. Tonight, I wasn't the quiet husband fading into the wallpaper. I was a pilot on final approach, every system checked, every contingency planned. That's when I spotted him. Jason Palmer, standing near the bar with the casual confidence of a man who believed he owned every room he entered. He was even more imposing in a tuxedo, his artificially white smile flashing as he worked his own networking magic on a group of what looked like hotel executives. He'd come to watch his girlfriend's husband receive some meaningless award before disappearing forever with their stolen money. The thought of his smug satisfaction made something cold and predatory wake up in my chest. "Captain Torres." I turned to find Charles Brenner himself approaching, a genuine smile creasing his weathered face. Brenner was a legend in Colorado aviation circles, former airline CEO, current industry advocate, and the kind of pilot who commanded instant respect from everyone who'd ever touched a yoke. "Mr. Brenner, thank you for inviting me." I shook his hand, feeling the calloused grip of someone who'd spent decades in cockpits before moving to boardrooms. "Please, call me Charles. I've been following your career for years. Military record, safety awards, that emergency landing you pulled off last winter in the blizzard." His voice carried genuine admiration. 17-knot crosswinds, 0 visibility, and you brought that 737 down like you were parking a car. I felt a flush of pride, the kind I used to get from Nicole's. Compliments back when she actually supported my career. "That's very kind of you to say." "Kind hell. It's simply true." Charles's voice carried across the nearby tables, drawing attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to introduce Captain Ryan Torres, one of Colorado's finest aviators." Suddenly I was surrounded by people. Airline executives, fellow pilots, aviation journalists, air traffic controllers, all eager to discuss flying. Someone mentioned the emergency landing, and others chimed in with their own stories of challenging weather and difficult approaches. For 20 minutes, I was the center of attention, basking in the kind of professional respect I'd been craving for years. Through the crowd, I saw Nicole watching from across the room, her face a mask of barely controlled horror. She'd expected to spend the evening making small talk, while her boring husband received some meaningless participation trophy. Instead, she was watching him command the attention and respect of Colorado's aviation elite. Beside her, Jason looked confused and increasingly irritated as he realized his evening was being upstaged by the pathetic pilot they had been mocking for months. "Your wife must be so proud," said Lisa Grant, the aviation journalist I'd researched so carefully. She was positioned perfectly for what came next, phone discreetly ready, camera crew on standby. "Oh, she is," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the now quiet room. "In fact, She's been incredibly supportive of my career. She calls my flying a cute little job and constantly reminds me to focus on real work instead of wasting time on my hobby. The group fell silent. Lisa looked confused, her journalistic instincts clearly triggered. Hobby? Captain, you're responsible for hundreds of lives every week. That's not hobby work. Try telling my wife that. I gestured toward Nicole, who had gone pale. She's much more impressed by real estate developers and corporate personalities, people with alpha energy who know how to take what they want. Nicole looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. The crowd had turned to stare at her, 50 of Denver's aviation elite waiting for her response to this unexpected public revelation. Ryan's being modest, she said weakly, her voice barely carrying across the room. Am I? I pulled out my phone, the recording app already cued to the conversation I wanted. Because last week, you told Jason Palmer over there that I was pathetic and naive. You also mentioned that pilots are all the same. We follow orders and don't make waves. Nicole's face went white. Jason had started moving toward the exit, but the crowd's attention was locked on the drama unfolding in their midst. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Nicole hissed, finally finding her voice. Why? I looked around the room, making eye contact with Lisa Grant, whose camera operator had appeared as if by magic. These are important people, right? The kind whose opinions matter for serious careers? I turned back to the crowd, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. The moment had arrived. Final approach. No turning back now. My wife has been having an affair with Jason Palmer over there, I announced to the room, my voice carrying with the same calm authority I used for passenger announcements. They think I'm too stupid to notice, too weak to do anything about it. They've been planning to steal everything I've worked for and disappear together. The silence was absolute. 50 of Denver's aviation elite stood frozen, drinks halfway to their lips, watching my marriage explode in real time. Lisa Grant's camera operator had positioned himself perfectly, capturing every moment for the evening news. Jason stepped forward, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You're making a scene, Torres. Am I? I pulled out my phone and hit play on the recording I'd made 3 nights earlier. Because this is nothing compared to the scene you two have been making behind my back. Nicole's voice filled the ballroom through my phone's speaker, crystal clear and devastating. Ryan's so pathetic. He actually thinks I respect his little flying hobby. The man has no ambition, no drive. Thank God I found you, Jason. At least you know how to take what you want. Then Jason's voice. Once we get his money moved offshore, we can disappear. Guy's too weak to fight back anyway. Probably won't even file for divorce. The crowd erupted in whispers and gasps. Several people were openly recording now, phones out, capturing every moment of what would become the most viral aviation industry scandal in Colorado history. You recorded private conversations, Nicole demanded, her voice shaking with rage and humiliation. I recorded conversations in my own home, I corrected. Perfectly legal in Colorado, unlike fraud, which is what you two have been planning. I looked around the room, making eye contact with every major figure I'd researched. See, the thing about being married to a pilot is that we're trained to notice details, weather patterns, mechanical problems, financial irregularities. I had their complete attention now. Even the waiters had stopped moving, drawn into the drama unfolding in the center of the ballroom. I've been tracking everything, I continued, my voice never rising above conversational level. Joint accounts, investment portfolios, that shell company you set up in the Cayman Islands. Hotel receipts, credit card charges, even the apartment lease you signed together for your new life in Lodo. Nicole looked like she might faint. Jason's expensive tan had turned a sickly pale color. Here's the thing, I said, looking directly at Charles Brenner, who was watching with the fascination of someone witnessing aviation history. You both made one crucial mistake. You assumed I was weak because I'm quiet. You thought I was stupid because I'm not flashy, but I'm a military-trained pilot, and we're taught that the most dangerous threats are the ones you don't see coming. I gestured to the crowd around us. These people understand what real responsibility looks like. They know the difference between managing marketing campaigns and keeping people alive at 35,000 feet. They respect competence over swagger, substance over flash. The applause started slowly, from Charles Brenner, then spread through the crowd like wildfire. 50 of Colorado's aviation elite were applauding my public destruction of the wife and lover who'd betrayed me. The underestimated pilot, I concluded, always lands the plane. Nicole and Jason pushed their way toward the exit, shoving through the crowd of people trying to congratulate me. As they reached the door, Jason turned back one last time. "This isn't over, Torres," he shouted across the ballroom. I smiled and raised my beer in a mock toast. "Yes, it is." The crowd erupted in laughter and more applause as my ex-wife and her lover fled into the night. Their reputations destroyed, their futures in ruins. The next morning, I woke up alone for the first time in 8 years. Nicole had packed a bag and left sometime after we returned from the ceremony, her parting words being a text message. "You've ruined everything." She was wrong, of course. She had ruined everything. I was just making sure everyone knew about the turbulence she'd created. Amanda showed up at my apartment with coffee and bagels, grinning like she'd won the lottery. "So," she said, settling into my kitchen chair, "I saw the video?" Video? I was still learning to navigate this new reality of living alone, making coffee for one person, checking my phone without dreading what I might find. "Someone posted your speech on social media. It's gone viral. Pilot exposes cheating wife at aviation awards is trending on Twitter." She showed me her phone. The shaky footage of my public revelation had been shared thousands of times, with comments ranging from supportive to savage. "This is either the best revenge in aviation history or the worst decision you've ever made," Amanda said, though her smile suggested she knew which one she believed. "Why not both?" My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You made enemies last night. Watch your back. Jay." I showed Amanda the message. She frowned. "Jason's not taking public humiliation well. Ryan, maybe you should be careful." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Let him try something. I've got the FBI investigating his financial crimes, the aviation community watching my back, and nothing left to lose." By the end of the week, both Nicole and Jason were unemployed. Her marketing firm had fired her to protect their reputation, and Jason's real estate company had voted him out, pending federal investigations into his business practices. I, meanwhile, had received interview requests from 3 major airlines and a call from a publisher interested in aviation memoirs. Apparently, nothing sells books like a viral revenge story featuring a pilot who refused to go down quietly. The quiet captain had finally found his voice at altitude, and the landing was perfect. Clear skies ahead, favorable winds, and a flight plan that led exactly where I wanted to go. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's showing the world who you really are when the people who tried to destroy you thought you were too weak to fight back. Turns out they were wrong about pilots. We don't just follow orders, we fly.